Welcome to another episode of For Once and Horses. My name is Rachel, and I'm your host. You can find me at either my regular blog, which can be found at furlongdrive.blogspot.com, or my Breeders' Cup blog, which can be found at roadtothecupblog.blogspot.com. Before I get into today's preview, which is not of a Breeders' Cup Win You're In, it is of another race, the West Virginia Derby, but I'll get into that in a minute. I just want to do a quick little recap on last week's races, the two Win You're Ins and the Jim Dandy. I'm going to start off with the Jim Dandy. Of course, the big winner there was Wicked Strawn. He added blinkers, and he was into the race earlier than he had been in the past, which turned out to be more helpful. Tunnelist, his first start since the Belmont, he was second. Kid Cruz was third. So the three horses who I had thought would go 1, 2, 3 in that order went 1, 2, 3. And of course, I did not bet it. And when I saw the price for that trifecta, I kind of cried a little. But very happy with the winner. Runner up actually looked to me a little bit like he was spinning his wheels a little bit on the Saratoga surface, but that could change in the Travelers, which will likely be the next start for all three of them. The Haskell, when I handicapped the race, I figured that it will be a speed horse who won, and I was right. I just got the wrong speed horse. Bayern won with ease. Basically, Monmouth is a very speed favoring track, and that's why I went with Wildcat Red, who finished third. Albano was second. Untappable just didn't show up, and of course, I haven't seen her comments, but apparently Rosie and Provnick blame social inclusion for Untappable's loss, but I don't think that was a problem. She wasn't going to win anyway. Actually reminded me a lot of Gary Stevens in the Derby had accused Rajiv Murrah, who was on Wicked Strawn, of basically destroying Candy Boy's race. And I don't think that was true. Candy Boy I felt, had no chance in the Derby in the first place, whereas Wicked Strawn was much better candidate to my eyes, and it turned out I was right. So even if Candy Boy was hampered with, and I watched that replay like several times, and it looked inconclusive to me. So I think it was just a bit of bitterness on Gary Stevens' part, and now he's out for the year due to a knee injury. We'll actually talk about Candy Boy in the West Virginia Derby, and so let's go ahead and get on with the preview. There is a field of 9 entered into this year's West Virginia Derby. It's at 1.125 on dirt at Mountaineer. So let's go ahead and take a look at this year's field. Number 1 is Key for Success. He's by Red Giant, and Rick Stokes, who is scheduled to ride him, is actually named to another horse in this race, which I will get to in a little bit. Tommy Short trains him. He is a maiden. He is 0-4 in his career, and he finished second in his last start. Yes, maidens have done well in Grade to Stakes races in the past. This is a grade 2. But there are actually some very good horses in this year's race. So he is going to have to improve big time to have any chance winning this year's West Virginia Derby. And even before that, even take out the 4, he might have a okay chance, but not a great chance to get the win. Number 2 is For Goodness Sake. He's by Big Brown. Brian Hernandez will ride for Michael Tomlinson. He is won his last 2, his maiden, and he also won an allowance against Older. And actually, one of the horses who he defeated in that allowance win was last year's Kentucky Derby runner-up, Golden Soul. Number 3 is Classic Jacqueminot. He is by Giacomo. Kendra Kermish will ride for Lisa Gorello. And I apologize if I mispronounced her last name. Second in an allowance in his last, but he has stake experience. He is one of 4 horses who were on the Derby Trail earlier this year, but he is the only one in this field who did not make the Derby. He chased home Samrat, Uncle Si, and Kid Cruz. Of course, Kid Cruz third in the Jim Dandy, as I said before. And I believe Samrat and Uncle Si are actually out for the year due to injuries. So he's probably going to be your 4th place horse, just based on the fact that the 3 horses who I expect to go 1, 2, 3 have very good records compared to the other horses. So he's probably going to be your 4th place horse. He has a chance to probably be at least 3rd, maybe 2nd. I don't think he'll win. But he is definitely the best of the rest. Actually, one of those horses who I think is going to be in the top 3 is next, and that's number 4, Vickers in Trouble. He's by Into Mischief. Alan Garcia will ride for Mike Maker. Last in the Kentucky Derby, he rebounded to finish 3rd in the Iowa Derby in his last. Problem is that all of his wins have been in Louisiana, where he was fooled. So he needs to show that he can win outside of Louisiana. And normally this will be a race where he could possibly do it, but there are 2 other horses in here who I think can and will defeat him in this race. And as I said before, number 5 is also one of those horses who can beat him, and that is Tapiture. He's by Tappet. Rosie Napravnik will ride for Steve Asmussen. 15th in the Derby. He rebounded in his last to win the win. He can run a mile and 1/8 because he was 4th in the Arkansas Derby in his final prep for the Derby. But I think he's more of like a mile in 16th type of horse. Of the what I'll call quote unquote big 3 in this race, I believe he's going to be the horse who's going to be in the Breeders' Cup. I believe he's going to be in the Dirt Mile. But if he wins here, all of a sudden, now you're talking about possibly classic implications. But he's probably not fast enough to run at 1.25 miles. So Dirt Mile, a better choice for him. he, like Vickers in Trouble, can win this race, but as I said, Mile and Eighth might be a little bit too long for him to win, but he will definitely be there at the end. Figure second, third, probably no worse than third in this race. Number 6 is Gold Appointment, and he's by Grand Appointment, and this is the other horse that Rex Stokes is scheduled to ride. Robert Rockwell trains him. He won in allowance in his last after failing miserably in a Louisiana bred stakes race. He won the Crescent City Derby, but he won that probably by default because Vickers in Trouble was facing Open Company in that race, and this is his first start outside of Louisiana. I don't see, like with Key for Success, has any chance in this race. So we'll have to just I wouldn't be surprised if one of those two, or one of them will very likely be scratched as well. If another rider can't be found, finishes in last here. Number 7 is Divine View. He's by Divine Park, and Kerwin Clark and Larry Jones are his rider and trainer respectively. Of course, they had just teamed up to finish second with Albino in the Haskell. He was second in an allowance in his last, and then he was fourth in the Buddy Delp. Before that, he does have another 6 try, and it did not go well at all. He normally would probably be dark horse, but I don't think he has any chance here. Even though, as much as I like Larry Jones, I just feel like he's up against it here. As is the next horse, number 8. Only I know he's by Flower Alley, and I apologize if I mispronounce both of their last names. Christian Polaris rides for Deborah Rombies. Second in an allowance in his last. He does have a start outside of Mountaineer. All of his other starts are at Mountaineer, but that was a 6th place finish in a stakes at Woodbine, and it was a sprint race, so not even, there was probably, there wasn't any horse who ran in the Queen's Plate, which is, of course, their version, basically, of the Kentucky Derby. I just, again, with this year's field, it's just going to be very hard for him to even hit the top 4. And then finally, number 9 is Candy Boy, and he's by Candy Ride. Corey Nakatani rides for John Sadler, a Californian. The way how California racing's been going this year, you kind of have to have a Californian in a graded stakes race. 13th in the Derby, second to Shared Belief, who, of course, was the 2-year-old champion last year in the Los Alamitos Derby, which was formerly the Swaps in his last. He won the Lewis, third to California Chrome in the Santa Anita Derby. He is a horse who basically has to win. I mean, Vickers in Trouble and Tapshire are very good as well, but he is probably going to be the horse to beat. in this race, just based on the fact that he ran the best in the Derby, and then he actually, even though Vickers and Trouble won the Louisiana Derby, he basically had the best um, Derby tryout out of the three of them. So up next are my picks. So for my picks, to win, I like Candy Boy. I just feel that he is the best horse in the race, and he doesn't tower over Vickers in Trouble and Tapture, but the rest of the field he certainly does. In second, I have Tapture. I just feel like he might be more suited to finish second than Vickers in Trouble does. And then in third, I have Vickers in Trouble. He's just going to be a much better horse than uh, the fact that he's running against Lester Company now. Again, will help him big time. Classic Jock and Roll will probably run well too. Of course, a couple of the long shots might surprise me. But my top three, I'm pretty committed to them. Candy Boy, Tapture, and Vickers in Trouble. So that is it for the West Virginia Derby preview. Later this week, I will have one, I'm hoping two, more likely just one, preview of the two winning your ins this weekend, the Whitney and the Clement Hirsch. Um, I'll definitely be previewing the Whitney. The Hirsch is kind of up in there. It depends on who shows up. If like Iotapa shows up, I probably will preview. There are a couple other California fillies, mares that will probably show up, even though Beholder is currently on the sideline. So I'll check back later this week with more. So until then, bye.